Hey up guys, how's it going? It's Denham again, Den Weasel, whatever. Back for another trick tip. We are overdue, so we're looking again at some basics. We're going to go for a really basic freestyle fundamental, which is getting into rail. Okay, so let's clear up a bit of terminology here. Now, rail is Primo. You might hear it called Primo, but a Primo is actually only a Primo if you are sliding it. It's a Primo slide invented by Primo Desiderio. That act of standing on the side of the board is called rail. So that's just to clear that up. It doesn't matter which one you call it really, but if you're using the proper name for it, it's a rail trick, which is why you'll hear me refer to it as rail from now on rather than Primo, just to clear it up a bit. Now again, this one is kind of like a connective tissue, so it's not really a trick in itself, but it's certainly a trick that you're going to need for the rest of your freestyle skating, because it's essential for doing tricks out of things like Casper disasters, and there's a hell of a lot of tricks you can do into rail as well. So it'll take a bit to get your head around, might take a bit of practice, but let's have a look at it. Right, so there's two ways to do this, three ways actually. So first way is that we're stood on the board normally, just as we would do, and we're going to kind of pop up into the rail. So what we're doing here is we're setting our feet up in a way where one is doing the opposite thing to the other. So obviously on the zoomed in clip you can kind of see where my feet are going here. So I'm regular, my front foot is up at the front of the board with my toes just on the edge and my heel hanging off, alright? And I'm on my tiptoes a little bit, just on like the balls of my feet, so that my heel isn't going to hit the floor when I try and pull up into Primo. Sorry, rail, not Primo. Good, and now my back foot is doing pretty much the opposite thing. So my back foot has the toes hanging off at the front of the board, and it's positioned just by the bolts at the back of the board as well. So it's doing essentially the opposite of what my front foot is doing. Now that we've got our feet set up in that kind of opposite position, then what we're going to do is with our front foot, we're going to push down on the toes a little bit, and that's going to cause the board to start flipping up onto its side. We want to push down fairly hard to kind of pop the board up. That back foot, with your toes hanging off the edge, as soon as the board comes upwards, that back foot is just going to rest on the back truck, right on top of your wheel, okay, so right on top of the axle nuts where your wheel is. So you're going to push down on that front foot to tip the board up, and then lock that back foot onto the top of the board, onto the rail. Now something that will help you here is having tighter trucks. That's going to give it a bit more spring to be able to pop up into rail. So maybe tighten your trucks up if you're struggling. Tight trucks are pretty good for freestyle anyways, so you might just need to crank them in a little bit. Things that can go wrong here, sometimes you'll be touching the heel of the front foot on the floor. That's mainly because when we push down on that front foot to flip the board up, we need to make the transition from the front foot to the back foot quite quickly. What I mean by that is that once we've pushed down and the board started tipping up, we need to trap it with that back foot. Let it roll up, get the back foot onto the rail, and then bring your front foot up. Okay, you'll see a lot of people do this at first, keeping the front foot on the floor. That's fine while you're learning, but as you progress you want to be popping straight up without either of your feet touching the floor. Then of course, once you're up in rail, keep your feet over those wheel nuts and just keep your knees nice and bent. Don't need to lean on either side of the board or anything like that. Just treat it as if you were just stood on the bolts on your board. Well, now it's going to be a bit of a test of your balance if you're not used to doing this one. And while you're learning, it can be quite scary because it's a few inches off the floor. So don't be nervous of it too much. If you're in doubt, stay low, keep your knees nice and bent. Lower your centre of gravity. That's going to help you out a little bit. So the other way we can get up into rail is by kind of rolling the board forwards. using our toes. So this is a little bit harder in my opinion, but it completely depends. Some of you guys might find this a bit easier. What we're going to do is we're going to have both our feet over the bolts this time. And what we want to be doing here is pushing down and forwards with both feet at the same time. And that'll start tipping the board over in front of us. Once that board starts tipping over in front of us, we want to hop up a little bit. Up onto the wheel nuts there. If you're finding this one really hard at first, it might help to have your feet shuffled forwards a little bit, maybe so that a little bit more of your foot is dangling off the board in front of you. So try that a bit if you're struggling with this one. It is a little bit more challenging in my opinion, and the tricks that you're doing out of this version are a little bit harder too. That's just my opinion though, because I'm not very good at them. Okay, and the last way that we can get into rail before you start doing kind of tricks into rail is by starting off in a tail stop. So we're going to be starting on the tail of the board. You should know what a tail stop is by now, particularly if you've watched a few of these other videos. And what we're going to do is kick the board over with one foot onto the rail. Now something that I see quite a lot is people leaving the back foot on the floor for quite a long time when they've stepped up. Again, if you're learning this, that's absolutely fine. You know, you've got to build things up gradually, alright? But eventually, further down the line, once you get better at these, try and work on getting that back foot up real quick onto the other wheel. It just looks a bit smoother, and we're all about kind of linking tricks together in a fairly smooth manner in freestyle. So don't sweat it if you're keeping your foot down at first. Just keep working on it, keep practicing it. As with anything, it takes a little while to get it consistent. So just keep going. It's all good. Keep your foot down if you want, just not permanently. Cool. Okay, hopefully that helps you a little bit in terms of how to get into rail. It is a little bit awkward at times when you're first learning this one, because you're trying to figure out how much pressure you need to pull the board up. So play around with your foot positioning. If you need any help, give me a shout. That's what I do. I'm here to help you guys learn how to freestyle. So let me know if you need a hand. And best of luck. Just get stuck in, have fun with it, and create your own little ways of getting into rail as well. We'll look at tricks out of rail in another video. Cool. Like, share, subscribe, whatever, and thanks very much. We'll see you in a bit. Bye bye.